Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another exciting Savvy workshop. I'd say exciting, obviously, because I'm doing it, and that's natural. But all seriously, welcome, and if you're already graduated and you're out there doing great things, this session will help you perhaps refocus on some things that perhaps you need to. And if you're in the process of completing the program and planning your exciting business future, then absolutely today's session has some things in it you need to be think very carefully about and make sure that you learn from this experience. Today's session is called The 9 Things People Fail to Ask or Just Choose to Ignore. The 9 things people fail to ask or choose to ignore. And for those of you who are watching the PowerPoint that goes with this, I love that quote, cluelessness. There are no stupid questions, but there are a lot of inquisitive idiots. You know, asking or being inquisitive, but then not doing something about it, acting on what you learn, is cluelessness, stupidity, however you want to phrase it. So hopefully these 9 tips, and I might even throw in a bonus one, will help you on your journey. Let's get started, shall we? Tip number 1, or question number 1, should I be working for myself or someone else? You know, and that's a fantastic question, because, you know, the risk is that we charge off into a business because an opportunity presents itself. And yes, any opportunity is an opportunity worth looking at, but it doesn't mean it's the right opportunity for you. So it's important that you take the time to consider the options that you have, which in simplistic terms range from working for yourself, being self-employed, or working for someone else, being an employee. But there are a lot of different scenarios that could play out in each of those. For example, if you're going to work for yourself, you could be working for yourself from your garage at home. You could be working for yourself as a contracted trainer within someone else's personal training business or personal training studio. And so therefore, and they both, those 2 examples have fundamentally, different dynamics. They have different strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. They have different risk profiles, and it's important that you choose the right option for yourself. And that's where values becomes really, really important. And understanding the type of person that you are, the type of environments that you like to work in, and the type of way you want to operate. You know, and I've said this many times before. For example, if you're someone who's very independent, wants to do things their own way, wants to structure the business specifically the way they want it to be, they want it to be different. They don't want to have to be constrained by the policies and procedures of another organization, be it as an employee or be it as a contractor, then it would make a lot of sense that the environment that you choose, or the business model that you choose, gives you the freedom to do that. So to go and work, for example, in a large organization which has lots of contract trainers, for example, will clearly have lots of policies and procedures that you'll have to follow, even though you don't necessarily want to, or you want to do it differently. So making that decision is a really important decision, rather than just being excited or flattered by an opportunity that falls in front of you and grabbing onto it and running with it. Acknowledge that, stop, step back, think about it, evaluate what it is that's going to be right for you, and if it is the right opportunity for you, then proceed, be it as an employee or be it as working for someone else. There's nothing wrong with working for someone else as an employee. You know, you could end up being the chief executive, and so therefore, you know, you run the entire organization. Lots of people enjoy a huge amount of success in that way, and if that's right for you, that's fantastic. Alternatively, if being self-employed, running your own business in whatever environment and whatever way is the right thing for you, then pursue it with passion. Don't just fall into something, because generally speaking, when you fall into something, you're most likely to fall out with that at some point at a future date. So that's question number 1 that you should ask yourself, and you should act on the answer that you give yourself, providing that answer is well thought through. Question number 2, do I have to register for GST? And the simple answer to that question is maybe. There is no yes or no, unless certain things exist. In New Zealand, if your income, the money that you receive from clients, is going to exceed $60,000, then yes, you are obligated or required to register for GST. If in Australia, that threshold or that level is higher at $75,000. So if your income is going to exceed 60 or 75,000 in Australia, then you are legally required to register for GST. Now, the legislation actually states that if you expect to exceed that level of income in your first year of business, you should register for GST at the outset. The legislation doesn't say that at some point in time, having started your business, if your numbers, you only have to wait until you exceed that threshold or you get to that threshold to register at that point. That's not correct. However, that's a common practice, and that's an issue that I would highly recommend that you would discuss with your accountant, and we'll talk a little bit about accountants later, and to be guided by them. But if you observe the strict wording of the legislation, it states if you expect, that's based on things like budgets, if you expect your GST to exceed the threshold in your first year of business, then you are required to register at the outset. It doesn't give you the freedom and the specific wording in the Act to make that decision at some point during that initial 12-month period in order to avoid having to pay GST along the way. But if you have to pay or have to register for GST and pay GST, you also inherit the entitlement to be able to claim the GST on the expenses that the GST expenses, inclusive expenses, I should say, that you incur in your business. So it's not completely bad news. And that also includes the GST on the capital expenses that you incur in setting up your business before you see a paying customer. So in simple terms, there's no yes or no answer unless you exceed the thresholds. If you're going to remain below the thresholds, because, for example, you only have a small business or you're only working a certain number of hours because you have other commitments or other obligations, then quite likely you would never register for GST. But clearly, if you were working full-time and you were doing a good number of sessions at a market price for your time, you will inevitably exceed the thresholds in both New Zealand and Australia, and you will be required to re-register for GST. When exactly you do that, take the advice of your accountant, because he's on your team, he or she, I should say, is on your team for a reason. If you ignore GST and just hope that it never pops its head up, then you do so at your peril, and that would be plain stupidity. All right, so that's question number 2. Let's have a look at question number 3. How much should I put away to cover my tax and the GST? Well, that's a little bit determined by the level of your income, obviously, and the structure of your business, whether you're a sole trader and whether you're a company, and how you distribute the income between the company and yourself personally. But in order to just give you a yardstick or a guide in order to help you plan for meeting your GST and tax obligations, here would be a rule of thumb. For GST, if you put into a piggy bank, for the sake of an example, or into a bank account, specifically called your taxation planning account, for example, if you put 15 cents for every dollar of income you received, so if you would receive $100 of income, you would put $15 of that $100 income into that bank account, then you would absolutely be well and truly covering your GST will be able to cover your GST obligations when they fell due. And so that's a 15 cents for every dollar of income that you receive. For income tax, if you put a further 15 cents for every dollar of income you receive, so now for the $100, you've put away $30, $15 for GST and $15 for income tax. You're left with $70 $70 because $30 has been put away for the GST and the income tax. Then you will be very close to being able to meet your taxation, which is GST and income tax obligations, when they are required. There may be a little bit of a wash up, maybe some extra you have to pay, maybe a little bit less, just depending on the dynamics of your income and your expenses during the income tax year. And as I said, depending on whether you're a sole trader or whether you are a company and how you have that structured, may affect that. But 30 cents of every dollar that you earn, so just recapping, if you were to earn $100, you put $30 of that away, you would be fairly close, safely setting yourself up to ensure that you are able to meet your obligations to pay GST and income tax when they fall due. And that's a very smart thing to do in business, because you really do not want to not pay the tax department. That's the last person that you don't want to have a good relationship with. Okay, so yes, you should be putting money away to cover your taxation and GST, because most people who don't spend it, and when they have to pay it, they can't, and that really does cause a problem for you, because when the tax department wants their money and you can't pay, you need to understand that you're going to have a bit of grief that you need to deal with, a challenge in your business. And that's a challenge that will detract from your ability to focus on your clients and be successful. So that's question number 3. Question number 4, do I really need to REPS register? So that's known as the Register for Exercise Professionals. The short answer in both Australia and New Zealand is no, you don't. There is no legal obligation, an obligation at law currently in either country to obligate you to register as a fitness professional with the registration body that the industry in both countries has. Now, that may change at a future date, but currently that is the case. So therefore the question becomes, why would you if you don't have to? And clearly that is a decision that you have to make. It's an expense that you put into your business, but it allows you to state in your marketing, in your communication, that you are a registered fitness professional, and that gives a level of credibility, independent acknowledgement that you are a professional, that you are qualified, that you know what you're doing, and therefore that your clients or prospective clients should or can trust that that you're competent, experienced, and able to give them what they need. In addition to that, the registrations do come with certain other benefits, and one of the principal benefits is it, well, again, slight differences between Australia and New Zealand, but it does include some automatic insurance as part of the registration fee that you paid, and that insurance is professional indemnity insurance and public liability insurance. And those insurances are intended to deal with situations where, in terms of public liability, if something beyond your control was to happen in your studio, or something was to fall on their head and it was an act of God, that you couldn't be sued, and if you were sued, then that you'd be protected through that insurance. Or equally, the professional indemnity is if you were to do something that was to regrettably injure your client, and you were sued and you were found for some reason to have been negligent, the insurance would provide you with a degree of financial protection against being sued for that event. And so, you know, there are some benefits, and if you accept that you need those insurances, irrespective of whether you register with REPS or not, if you can get that benefit as a consequence of being REPS registered as part of that, then why not take advantage of that? Because you're going to need to put that in place anyway, and that's another question that will come up shortly. And there are other benefits: access to information, ongoing, you know, communication about changes in the industry, etc., etc. But the bottom line is no, you're not legally required to register for REPS. But you know, there would be a suggestion that if you didn't, that it's possibly a stupid decision, and it's a question, or it's a decision that you should at least give some very, very careful consideration to, not just ignore it completely. So that's question number 4. Question number 5 is, do I need a contract? That says contract. How about that? That's a spelling mistake. Don't you hate that when you find the spelling mistakes in your work like that? So I'm going to fix that right now, because that's not very professional on my part. So I've just given myself a uppercut. So it now reads, do I need a contract, not a contact? Do I need a contract, and does my lawyer really need to look at it? Now, contracts could be dealing with things like it could be an employment contract. It could be a contract where you are working in a studio as a contract personal trainer, and the contract details the terms and conditions upon which you are able to work there, your obligations to them and their obligations to you. It could be a contract to do with you leasing premises for you to operate your new personal training studio. Now, I mean, my simple answer to that is yes, of course you do. You know, when you enter into a contract, you need to understand what you're agreeing to. You need to understand the risks, the obligations that you are taking on. You need to understand the risks that go with that, so that, because ignorance is not bliss. You know, you can't turn around and say, oh, I didn't realize that I'd agreed to a lease term of 3 years, or I didn't realize I'd agreed to pay that much rent, or I didn't realize that I also had to pay that and do this and do that. Those sorts of things, when you don't wash in a contractual setting. If you sign something and agree to do it, there's an expectation that you will do it. Equally so, if the party that you are entering into the contract with has obligations to you to do certain things, you expect them to do it, and they can't turn around and say, I didn't realize I had to do that for you, because you can turn around and say, well, you may not realize that, but you did agree to it. It's in the contract there, it is written there, so please do it. Now, the reality is, in any contract, the devil is in the detail, and some of the detail can get a little bit technical. So this is where it's important that you have a lawyer to help you understand those things. Don't sign something that you don't understand. Don't sign something that you haven't thought through in terms of, what does this mean for me personally? What does this mean for my business? What am I agreeing to do? What am I agreeing not to do, etc., etc. And understand that a verbal contract isn't worth anything. An agreement with someone verbally to be a personal trainer at their studio and pay a certain amount of rent and do this and do that, and they'll do this and do that, if ultimately the relationship turns a little bit sour, those verbal agreements mean nothing. Whereas if you can pull out a document that says you only had your obligations were this and their obligations were that, it's black and white, and therefore it can help you to navigate through some of those challenges if and when they occur. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's a simple answer to that question. Do I need a contract, and does my lawyer really need to look at it? Absolutely. If you enter into a contract, an employment agreement, a personal training contract, a lease, or anything like that, without having a lawyer or someone with extensive experience in that field looking at it and giving you some advice, well, that would also equal stupidity. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. Question number 6, I think it's 7. Do I need a bank account and EFTPOS credit card payment systems? Great question. Well, technically, legally, no, you do not have to have a bank account. And no, you don't have to have credit card capacity to accept credit cards and take payments. You could operate your business on a completely cash basis, so that every bit of income you receive is cash, and every single bit of income that you receive is cash. Expenses that you incur are paid in cash, providing you keep full records of all of the cash income that you've received and all of the cash expenses that you've incurred, and you are able to demonstrate that, to the tax department, and you paid tax accordingly on that, profit, and et cetera, and the GST. Then, absolutely. But there would have to be an ability to be able to. You'd have to keep some sort of paper records of those transactions. Now, invariably, when you don't have a bank account, that's complicated. The beauty of a bank account is it records all of the transactions, the money that goes in and where it came from, and the money that goes out and where it went to. So the bank account, combined with the accounting system that you use, provides simple, transparent, auditable records that are available to you, they're available to your accountant, they're available to your bank if you want to borrow some money, and they're also available maybe down the track when you've been really, really successful and you're about to sell your business to a potential purchaser who wants to see what they're buying and what the history of the business that they're buying is like. You're able to provide that information to them. Chances are, if you've just gone completely down the old school way and gone totally cash, and you've had invoice books and et cetera, and you've got paper from arsehole to breakfast. That's a horrible saying, but it's an old one. Then you're going to end up with a tiger by the tail invariably, and you're going to have a very, very messy business. Should you have EFTPOS and credit card payment systems to make it easy for your clients to pay you, because most people don't use cash anymore? The answer to that question is no. If you want to operate your business whereby everyone pays you in cash, as long as your client understands that and accepts that, then that's what they do. But the reality is, if 95% of the population use EFTPOS, credit card, electronic bank transfers as their payment methods, then it's pretty poor customer service on your part and not very professional to offer that service to them. And let's be honest, the banks and economies in general are trying to move away from cash. Ultimately, in the fullness of time, I think personally, cash will cease to exist. Everything will be electronically based. But at this stage, it still does. And so in simple terms, the answer to the question, do I need a bank account and EFTPOS payment credit card systems, is technically no, but not to have them in the modern world in order to deliver a great service and manage your business effectively and ensure that you're doing that. The answer to that question is absolutely yes. And if you don't, you're an idiot. All right, next question. Do I really need insurance? Well, let's pose the question. Let's say, for example, your house or your studio burnt down, or the gym that you operate from your business burnt down, and you didn't have in the lease that they've got to keep their premises insured, so etc. Let's say, for example, you were robbed and all of your equipment was stolen. Let's say, for example, you got sick and weren't able to continue your business that you'd built up and your clients, and you weren't able to train those clients for a period of time while you were recovering from that illness. We're not talking about the flu here. We're talking about something a little bit more serious. Or let's say, for example, something happened in your studio that resulted in a serious injury, albeit, and that perhaps there was a degree of negligence involved in allowing that to occur, and you were sued. Now, in each of those circumstances, do you think it would be good to have some insurance in place to protect you? Let's say that there was a massive earthquake and your business was destroyed in the earthquake and you weren't able to train clients for a period of time. Or there was a tsunami because a volcano decided to erupt somewhere and your studio was flooded and you had to replace everything. Do you think in those circumstances you would like to have insurance? I'm sure if you thought those through, the simple answer to that question is yes, you would like to be protected in each of those scenarios. So absolutely, the answer to the question is, do I really need insurance? Is yes. And if you don't have insurance, then there is a small chance that you might go through your entire business career never having spent $1 on insurance and never be affected by any of those things. But trust me, if one of those things was to occur, it has the potential to destroy your business or to affect your business in such a significant way as to affect your financial freedom or your financial position hugely, then that's a very big risk to take not having that in place. So you need to have that insurance. You need to engage with your insurance company or with an insurance broker. And an insurance broker is like a mortgage broker. They go out and find the best mortgage for you for your house. The insurance broker goes out and finds the best insurance for your insurance needs. And your insurance needs will be different if you, for example, working from your garage at home as a home studio, or you've rented premises in town, or you're working for a big chain of gyms as a contract personal trainer. Your needs, or alternatively as an employee, your individual needs for insurance are quite different. And that's where, being able to explain your business to your broker so they understand the nature of your business and where you need insurance help, fire, theft, accident, sickness, they will then go to the market and find those insurances for you at a sensible level and at an affordable price. But trust me, the time that you will regret not having insurance big time is when one of these events happen. But conversely, the time that you are so thankful that you did have insurance in place is when one of those things does happen and you say, I'm so glad I spent those premiums, which at the time I wasn't too keen on, but I'm so glad that I did, because now I have insurance cover and insurance proceeds to help me get through the challenge that now presents itself to you. So do I really need insurance? Absolutely yes. Next question. Do I need a good accountant, lawyer, and how do I find them? These are all loaded questions, aren't they? Because the obvious answer to this question is yes. You need a good accountant to help you manage your finances, to manage your tax, to minimize your tax. That's not to avoid tax, because tax avoidance is illegal, but to minimize and manage the amount of tax that you pay is smart. And so, your accountant will help you through that. The lawyer will help you with your contracts. The lawyer will help you if you're going to buy a business in terms of someone else's business, or expand your business, and work through that. The lawyer will help you with some of the decisions that you make with the money that you get from the success, buying a house, buying an investment property. The relationships that you build with your accountant and lawyer that start when you first start your business will go with you throughout your entire business life. I personally am using the same accountant that we've had for over 30 years. I'm using the same legal firm that I first engaged when I was 18 years old, and now I'm 58, so that's 40 years. Different people, because partners come and go, or they retire and whatnot, but fundamentally the relationship is built with the firm and the people within that firm, and they've been able to provide great advice along the way. Has there been a cost to that? Absolutely. But at the same time, has that cost, that investment in their time been worthwhile? Absolutely, because it's allowed me to make better decisions. It's helped me to get through some challenges that have presented themselves along the way, and that's what they're there for. And how do you find them? Well, simple things like they may be a relationship that already exists within your family. Your family may have connections with an accountant or a business or a lawyer through existing activities. You may have a friend who you know and trust and respect, and they have a business and they have a relationship with an accountant and a lawyer, and they may be prepared to refer to them because they speak highly of them. you could ask someone that you know, maybe not hugely personally, but you know enough to ask the question. Do you mind me asking, you know, who do you use as your accountant or lawyer? And they someone that you'd refer to me as being someone that'd be worthwhile touching base with. Get onto Google, you know, do some Google researches on, you know, and you'll be surprised what you find when you look at someone, an accountant or a lawyer's business website, and if you look at their Facebook page and you look at other things, you'll start to get a feel for the people and what they do. And then once you've identified who you might want to work with, give them a ring, go and meet them, have a chat to them. They won't, you know, at the end of the day, do you get a good feeling about them? Do you get a good feeling about what they can do for you to help in the future? You know, you're going to enter into a relationship, you're going to contract their services, be sure that you are confident in them. And then once you do, engage them and use them. Obviously, there's a cost to that, but think of that cost in most instances as an investment. It's an investment in helping you to make better decisions, to ensure that you don't get yourself into a situation where you shouldn't get yourself, or contracts or things that you shouldn't get yourself into. You don't pay more tax than you should do. You take advantage of all the deductions you're entitled to in Australia and New Zealand for the benefit of your overall financial position. So absolutely, you should have a great accountant and lawyer in your business because they form part of your business mastermind group. Next question, final question, I think. What is the number one thing I have to be good at to be successful? Well, you know, lots of businesses fail for a whole host of reasons, and to pick out one thing is challenging because, you know, there's lots and lots of things which in a melting pot together combine to achieve, you know, help you achieve success. Because, you know, you can do a lot of things really, really well, and if you do a couple of things really, really badly, they can completely eliminate the good things just because, you know, of the nature of it. But if I had to pick out one thing that's to be good at, to be successful, and that's to be great at sales. Being great at sales is about being a great communicator. If you're a great communicator, you're able to build rapport with people, and you're able to build relationships. You're able to get them to trust you. You're able to get them to ultimately buy from you, and then you deliver on your promise, and ultimately you'll create an evangelist or a client for life who will become a great referral source for new clients for you. But fundamentally, if you're not a good communicator and you're not able to build that rapport, not able to build that relationship, not able to develop trust, then they won't buy from you. And if they don't buy from you, you don't have an income. And if they don't buy from you, you don't have a client who you can turn into an evangelist who will give you their friends and family's names so that you can help them in the same way you've helped them. So I think, you know, ultimately this would have to be the number one thing I'd single out. You know, obviously marketing is important, obviously financial management is important, obviously good systems and customer service, and all of that stuff is important. But be great at sales, and to be great at sales, you have to be a great communicator. A great communicator asks great questions, listens, understands their clients, and gets them to not only just like them, to trust them, and ultimately opens their bank account or opens their wallet to them. And that's what business is all about, ultimately getting customers who are going to give you money for the service that you provide, or the product, in this case, the service that you provide. And if you deliver on that promise, then you'll have a client for life. So be great at sales. And one final thing, it's about don't be stupid. And there's a little quote here: an ask hole is a person who constantly asks for your advice, yet always does the exact opposite of what you told them. You know, at the end of the day, if you're going to read and you're going to research, you're going to watch webinars, and talk to your accountant and your lawyer, and talk to Kerry O'Ryan herself, will give you the very best of our advice and our experience. But ultimately, you have to act on that. Now, that doesn't have to mean you swallow what everyone says like a big fish. You know, listen to what they say, consider carefully what they say, make a decision, and then act. But to ask for advice or to seek advice and then not to act on that advice, either directly as advice or alternatively in a slightly different way, is just plain stupidity. Because, you know, at the end of the day, nothing changes if nothing changes. You know, if you're asking for advice, then ask for it with a mindset of learning, ask for it for a mindset of ask from people that you like and trust and respect yourself, and then listen to what they say and act on what they say, or act on what they say with carefully considered changes or variations based on the experience that you're now learning or gaining from your time in business to add to the advice that you've received. So don't be stupid, don't be an asshole, would be my final little bit of advice. So hopefully those 9 questions are simple, fundamental questions. But you would be surprised how many people simply ignore that sort of stuff. You know, and I'm not just talking people who do the Max program, become, you know, fitness professionals. I'm talking about anyone who completes a qualification or decides to run a business. They just get so excited about their idea, they just get busy and they get out there trying to do it, and they don't do the simple things that they should do. They don't dot the I's, they don't cross the T's, and they're just setting themselves up, not necessarily for failure, although they're increasing the chances of failure substantially. They're setting themselves up to not be as successful as they could be and to have challenges along the way that they don't need to have. Okay, so do it once, do it properly, and learn from, you know, the mistakes that thousands of people right across every industry and every profession, all over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people around the world, learn from the mistakes they've made and don't make them themselves. As always, we're here to help you in any way we can. All you have to do is reach out to either Kerry Rowe or myself by you know, an email. In my case, it's steve@maxfitnesscollege.com. Love to help you in any way we can. Otherwise, hopefully you got something out of today's session. Enjoy the rest of today, and we'll chat again very, very soon.